Secrets from a Coach. Thrive and maximise your potential in the evolving workplace. Your weekly podcast with Debbie Green of Wishfish and Laura Thompson-Staveley of Phenomenal Training.
Deb.
Law, you all right?
Yeah, I am buzzing about
You
this.
tell me why you're buzzing.
Because it's just an opportunity to learn, and learning is just such a positive thing that you can do, particularly through times of transformation and change, because it just reminds you that every day is school day, and sometimes the things that might frustrate us or worry us, it's where that might be that lack of familiarity and that lack of certainty, and if you're unsure about something, then you're really vulnerable to just hearing all the drama and all the hysteria that's out there. And I think one of the joys about doing this podcast is it's just an easy way to tool up on some of these new languages and these new ways of looking at things. So I'm super excited about this week's guest.
Yeah, me too. I had the pleasure of chatting with Olly Cooper, who is an absolutely dynamic and versatile professional, who has a really strong foundation from the education sector, and now in operational readiness and working across change management and process coordination. And what I loved when we talked to Olly was his ability to just bring alive. And I felt like I was in a classroom, which is a good thing because I wanted to learn. And I just loved the way that he positively reframed things. So shall we take a listen to what he had to tell us, Law? So, as you can see, I'm joined by Olly. Hello, Olly. I'll get you to introduce yourself in a moment. And Olly, we wanted him to come on our podcast for this month because we believe that he can offer us an amazing richness and insight into identity, personal growth, and navigating professional spaces as somebody who identifies as a demi-boy and queer. And then given Olly's professional background, which he'll tell us a little bit about, along with his lived experience, we can absolutely have a great conversation about this. So, Olly, tell our listeners a little bit about you and how you've ended up chatting to us.
Of course. Hello, everyone. As Deb's introduced me, I'm Olly. I use the pronouns he, they. And I already got a glowing introduction from you, Debs. Thank you very much. I feel
Anytime.
already cheeked and excited. But yeah, no, I am an LGBTQ plus professional, and what that kind of means to me has been a very varied journey. And today I was going to kind of talk a little bit about the process that I've kind of been on in terms of self-identification and the education journey that I've been on. For a little bit of context, and because of probably the language that I use, and you may even notice with some of the scripts that I use, I was a secondary school teacher for 8 years. Working. So there is a degree of the language that I will use, and I'll still fall into certain tropes, I think, as I speak.
Brilliant.
So
you'll
probably pick up on that. Yeah, very much. It's learned scripts, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I love that.
So I was a secondary school teacher for 8 years. I went through a growth process through around that. There was lots of work that I did that we'll hopefully discuss around through this conversation. And now I've changed my career path entirely. I've walked away from the education sector, and I've started a new role working as, and get ready for this, I'm ready. I'm an implementation and process coordinator. When I applied for that role, I didn't necessarily know what it meant either. I'm 4 months in, and I'm not still 100% sure how that title really aligns with my work. But what I will say is I'm very much enjoying my time working for the company I'm working for. So it's a big positive change at the moment.
Yeah. Oh my God, that's amazing. And I think when you have a job title that you just apply for and you go, what am I doing? And then you get into it and then you realize, oh my God, this is so cool.
Yeah.
But what I love is the fact that you've had, the experience in the education sector as well. So, being able to bring over your experiences from them into a very different environment, it must be fascinating to do. But before we sort of go into that in a little bit more detail, as you alluded to, I love that. Can you share with us your journey of coming into your identity as a demi-boy and queer for us? And for those listeners that may go, what are we talking about? It would be really helpful if you can just expand on that for us.
Of course, yeah. yeah, so I identify as a Demi-Boy, and my sexuality is queer. And that whole journey to me has been a lot of learning. And it's certainly, when you look at people's histories and their coming out stories and things like that,
Mm.
mine is not. It didn't, happen in school. It was much later in my life, really sort of only
Okay.
10 years ago or so, in which a lot of it I owe around to my partner, who I'm still with at the moment, KP. They're non-binary, and when I first met them, I'd been raised in a very heteronormative environment. And so it wasn't until
Mhm.
I sort of met and involved myself in a community of different genders and sexualities that I actually then started to have those kind of conversations. And it was amazing because it opened up this beautiful new kind of space and understanding of the social construct around me. And
Mhm.
from then on, the first thing we kind of looked at was, because my partner is non-binary, I usually saw myself as heterosexual, but if they're non-binary, then I am erasing their sexuality by saying that, oh, I'm straight, or something like that. So it then
Okay.
opened up this conversation where it's like, oh, okay, so let's look at other language around this. And we kind of both came onto this idea of being queer, because although it's a term that has been reclaimed by the community in itself,
It has.
because it was obviously it was used as a slur, and
Yeah.
I think now it's more of a really like umbrella term which sits under lots of different things. And I think, like, with questioning and with folks that are more sexuality fluid, it kind of works quite nicely to kind of give this, like, I'm not conforming to what society and the social construct is kind of suggesting I should. I'm quite happy
Yeah.
just sitting under this umbrella term. And I feel like
Nice.
that's kind of the case for me, because
Yeah.
sexuality is such a spectrum in the way I see it. It kind
Yeah.
of works as a definition for me.
Yeah.
And the other side of it, with regards to being a Demi-Boy, as I said, like, I grew up in a very cis white male kind of environment. And
Mhm.
it wasn't until you then start to do that education and that research, and you go, oh, gender is a spectrum. Who'd have thought it? And then you start to look at the difference of, like, expression and romantic interest and sexuality, and how they're all separate, and that can define a
Mhm.
person in different ways. And then I go, actually, yeah, I enjoy painting my nails, because that's something that, although it's generally considered more of a feminine expression, it's something that brings me a lot of joy. Same with
Mhm.
makeup and things like that. It's generally considered feminine sort of expression, but I really enjoy it. And so when you look at the definitions behind the term Demi-Boy, what that kind of refers to is, majority of the time you feel masculine, and I more associate with that male sort of output and how in which I
Mhm.
view myself. But because I don't 100%, it kind of fits into this idea of Demi. So I'm not all the time going to be like that. I kind of shift and change with how I'm feeling and how I'm expressing that day. So I think it fits
Yeah.
with who I am as a person, and
Yeah.
that it's nice to have a label. Sometimes it makes you feel part of a community. I know it can be
Yeah.
harmful labels in certain times, but feeling like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, I have an actual thing now, it almost validates it by having a name to it. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's where I see
It brings
myself at the
some
moment.
sense. Yeah, I love that. And I suppose you picked up on the language element of what was going on. So thinking about what does that actually mean around sorry, that's my phone's just gone off. Bear with me.
You're
I thought I
popular.
turned it off. Bear with me. Yes. Go away, people. Right, okay. I'll stop. Sorry everyone. That was just not good.
It's all right. We're all
This
good.
doesn't normally happen. It's like they've updated my phone. I'm going, how do I turn this bloody thing off? Right, let me just do that again. Sorry, Ollie.
No,
That
it's
was
all
so
good. We're
important, but
fine.
it was a good. We came into a good pause moment, thankfully.
Yeah, that's
Right,
fair.
let's get rid of this. Yeah, okay. Right, gone. Okay, we're ready. What time are we at now? Cool, that's all right then. So Ollie, one of the things you mentioned was around the language, and that's always fascinated me anyway. The language we use is so important, and as you said, you referred to the term queer back in the
Mm.
day was slanderous, and as I say, to claim that title now, there'd be some people that would be going, what? They still don't necessarily understand it in the way it is. But when you think about language around gender and queerness, how has that evolved for you personally?
I think it's a really great question. And in terms of the language, it's really a part of that learning process, because
Mm,
the upbringing that we often have is very heteronormative, it's very gender normative, and we just don't really have those kind of conversations as much. And so it wasn't until I started to go, hang on a second, there is much more to this, let's explore it. You start to then get you go to events or things and you have conversations with people within the community and you learn that language and the
Yeah.
impact that it can have on people. So a project that I
Yes.
worked on when I was in the secondary school, part of a continuous development process, I looked at the impact of gendered language within classrooms. And
Okay.
obviously a lot around teachers were very good at scripts, so like ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, that kind of
Yes.
thing.
Yeah.
And it's that second nature. But then you go, well, hang on a second, if you have a young person that doesn't conform to those two, that very binary way of thinking, then I'm all of a
Mm-hmm.
sudden excluding them and thinking about the impact that could have, and going, well, let's stop using those terms. Let's start using folks. Let's start using gender neutral language. Let's use they them pronouns until we are certain what the pronouns of a young person are, so that we're not
Yeah.
erasing who they are or shutting down any possibility for them to explore things and have those conversations and questions. So yeah, the language around it's been really interesting, and the chance to speak with other people and learn different terms and look at different flags as well. That's something that I really
Yeah.
love as well. Each of those kind of
Okay.
gender expressions and everything kind of comes with this lovely space for community, and flags is a really good thing. I own many pride flags for events and things like that as
Yeah.
well, because it just makes me happy. I like to wear them as a
It
cape.
just makes you.
I love a cape.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, have a cape. Yes,
Yeah,
superhero cape or
yeah,
superheroine
exactly.
cape or super person cape. And this is where
Yeah,
people get caught up, don't they, in the
100%.
language.
Yes.
And we hear it, and you probably hear it as well. Is like, oh, what? And people get really struggle with them, they, or oh no, I
Yes.
can't
Yeah.
say that. It used to be a workshop. Where, all right, guys, and it used to drive me
Yeah.
insane because there was a
Yes.
mixture of people in there. Please don't call everybody guys.
Yes.
And it
Yeah.
was really interesting to have conversations with people about that. And they go, oh my God, I didn't even think about it. Yeah. So
Yes.
how much of that is I didn't even think about it? How does that impact on people?
I think that's a great question, and I think seeing it from a school environment and
Mm,
seeing that if you use like very binary focused language and you're not quite sure how to adapt it, and in most cases people want to be there and be there supportive for people that have different pronouns or use different language, but often, as you say, don't know how.
mm.
There's always useful guides out there. Stonewall's great to looking at how you can make things more gender neutral. One of my favorites, I think, is like a niece or nephew. If you make it gender neutral, it's nibbling, which I
A
really like.
nibbling. Oh
Yeah,
my
because
God,
you've
I
got like
love that.
sibling, which is
Yeah,
like your brother or sister kind of thing. But yeah, if you
sure.
gender neutral it, you've got nibblings, which I thought was great.
That's cool.
Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, even things like that, and like changing the language around, the manpower that we will need, or the fireman,
Yeah.
fire person, and even I struggle with it as well, like knowing like operation energy that you'll need to apply. And it starts to sound really weird, but I think that's a really interesting thing because it's how language evolves, and language has evolved so
Yes.
much in the last 10 years, let alone how it
Yeah.
might look in 100. And I feel
Yes,
like that
exactly.
that could give us a really interesting insight into what society actually views gender and sexuality is based on the
Hmm.
language that's currently used around it. And I think a lot of
Yeah.
the like ignorance and even some of the hate that comes from it comes from that lack of knowledge, and even that
Yeah.
inability to discuss it means it's much
Mm.
harder and it's a barrier to even learning about it. So that's
Yeah.
something that I
Yeah.
think is a really interesting concept.
And I think the more, I'm a true believer. The more you go, I don't know what that means, is to ask if you're not sure, and that's in anything. But a lot of people fear it, or don't come away with you. But going on to, if you think about, as you said, what does being a demi-boy, as you said, mean to you, and how does that have shape your sense of self?
Yeah, I think from a very like personal point of view as well, I
Yeah,
think that it comes from that level of like self-awareness and self-esteem.
yeah,
I think
sure.
understanding more parts about yourself gives you a lot more self-autonomy and ability to know what your needs are and what things you look for.
Mm,
I really think it's very useful to break down like sexuality and gender identity. Like I think it should split. I think it's 5 different things that I read it. It was, so you got your gender identity, you've got your gender expression, how you show yourself. You've then got your romantic sexuality, you've got your like physical sexuality, And then you've got your biological sex, which is almost like the last part where you look at biological male, biological female, intersex, that
Sure.
spectrum. And so
Yeah.
looking at yourself and breaking it down to those like 5 things, it can give you a lot more self-awareness and be like, oh yeah, no, I am romantically attracted to men, but not necessarily physically attracted to them. And it just gives you
Yeah.
that like self-awareness and self-understanding and like, oh yeah, I express a bit differently. Like, yeah, I am a demi-boy and I'm comfortable with that as an identity.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that is really fun to kind of learn more about yourself. If you ask yourself those kind of 5 questions
that's true.
almost, you get to learn a little bit more about what you like and who you are. So yeah, I think that's always something
And
I'd
I
recommend.
suppose I think that's definitely something. And now, whether that comes from the fact that you've been in that environment where you're always learning and always curious and wanted to know, but you're right. We always think that, people that have a great level of self-awareness are able to adapt and flex in any situation around that. And when we think about navigating our way through in the workplace, because that can be like a whole nother world. How have you done that? And being out in professional environments from the classroom to corporate settings, how have you navigated that?
It's a really interesting one because obviously it's these are part of protected characteristics. What I am doing is not wrong. But it's always that, especially in a school environment, looking at it in terms of, well, how will I be treated, especially when you're dealing with young people that parts of their brains perhaps have not developed about social grace or about being careful about the language they use and other things and empathy and things like that. And putting yourself in those positions where you may be challenged, like, why, sir, why are you wearing nail varnish?
Right, yeah.
And then going, okay, well, now look, we have to explore this conversation. The main reason was I often bit my nails because of anxiety and things like that. And so when I painted them, I couldn't see them, which was so good. And there's a tip for anyone that bites their nails and wants to try it. If you can't see them, you see, there you go.
Oh, that's clever.
But because I used to work under a visualizer, which essentially was a camera that projected up onto a big screen. So my hands were constantly under it. So I always wanted to make sure my nails look good because there's 30 children that are going to be looking at them right now. And and I think in the most cases, the children were really supportive. There would always be some people that they wouldn't be able to comprehend it, to understand, like, why on earth would I ever do this? But it wouldn't bother them that much. We kind of just get on with it. Whereas I'd have other people that would be really excited. Oh, your nails like this today, sir. Like, oh, I painted them this color, and like, oh, that's great, mine are this color. And being able to kind of have fun in that space, especially, it's not something I've been able to do. It's only been in the last few years that I've been painting my nails, and then being able to then have those conversations with people that I've never had before. Like, oh yeah, I'm thinking about green glitter next month.
Why
like,
not?
Exactly. It's really exciting.
It's about being you, isn't it? I suppose as well.
Very much so. And I think being unapologetically you as well is a really powerful thing. And particularly for teachers, they are role models to so many people.
Yeah, they are.
And being able to present yourself is that I'm confident about what I am doing, and I feel comfortable being my genuine self. And I think that can be really impactful, particularly if you are looking at a marginalized community and you're dealing with young people that are so confused, have so many questions. To see an ally and to see somebody that is so supportive and unapologetic, as I say, about who they are, that can be really powerful. That like, oh, I can be like that. At least they've got something to kind of strive towards even. But that's,
and
how
does that play out? I was going to say that's in the educate. How does that play out in corporate world?
It's an interesting one because
Isn't
obviously it's around. I come to work and I work on my spreadsheets and I work on the projects that I'm doing and have conversations with people. My sexuality doesn't often come up in those conversations, right or wrongly. And so you don't often, those kind of things are not often discussed and not necessary to discuss. But that being said, it's me coming into the workspace knowing that, I am Demi-Boy. There may be other people out there with gender conforming identities that I'm never going to know. Seeing things like putting pronouns on email signatures, I'll make it clear that I put he, they on mine, and the conversations that it can start, because like, oh, why have you put they then? It's like, okay, let's explore that.
Okay,
Again, I'm putting myself out there to gently have that conversation with people without it being confronting in some way, because I think it can be, as you've outlined, like quite challenging to have those conversations. if they're like, oh, should I approach this, or maybe I shouldn't, that could be offensive. And I think if you come
Yeah.
at something just trying to learn and to ask questions in a genuine manner, there's never anything wrong with that.
Mm.
I think always
Yeah.
being careful around who you're asking. If you can do your own research beforehand, that's much better,
Yes.
rather than putting the onus on a marginalised community
Yeah.
to tell you something that you can go and
Tell
look up
you.
yourself.
Yeah,
Like, yeah.
exactly. Especially now when we can and we have
Exactly.
access to so
Ease
much
of information. Yeah,
Yeah, it's
exactly.
whereas maybe back in the day, as they always say, that wasn't as easily accessible. So, it's like it would have got misunderstood in whatever way, and there isn't that education around it or that
Yeah,
willingness to even explore it. And I think that's what, when you're looking at authentic inclusion as well,
yes.
what does that look like for non-binary or gender non-conforming folks at work? What does that look like?
I think it's feeling safe in that space and
Yeah.
protected. I know you can kind of look at
Mm.
it from a policy point of view, that your equality, diversity, and inclusion policy, make sure it's covered
Yeah.
for folks that are trans, make sure that it is supportive of people that have
Yeah.
different sexualities, and if those are challenged, then they are dealt with in the same way racism or sexism is dealt with.
Mm.
And I think that can make you feel quite a lot safer in your role.
Yeah.
And it's important to remember, though, that policy is only one thing. Culture eats policy for
It's a
breakfast, kind of
guideline,
thing.
right? Yeah, yeah,
Exactly,
exactly.
100%. And I
Yeah.
think the culture kind of comes with the conversations that you have with people on a day-to-day basis.
Mm.
And even for me, it's a conversation I'm looking at the moment with my line manager. We don't really have a supportive LGBTQ plus space for our colleagues or our customers. And is that
Mm-hmm.
something that we could explore and go forward from? And feeling that I am welcome to have that conversation in a workspace, that I am trying to make those improvements and it's being met with support rather than kicking it down the road,
Yeah.
kind of thing, that makes me
Yeah.
feel like, oh, this company is trying to actually try and make a
Mm.
difference here, and they're supporting my approach to try and make those improvements. So that's something
Yeah,
that I
that's
feel
good.
gives you that security, even though
Yeah.
it's about making it nicer for other people almost as well, and
Yeah, I get
having that
that.
support.
I think that's brilliant if they're embracing that and willing to go, oh yeah. Because we know, demographics move and go, generations move on, and you think of the aging population that we're in and where we're at now, and when we're 70, 80, 90, 50 years from now, 40 years from now, that is got to be talked about now, right? So that people, again, there's not this exclusion, it's like inclusion, which is so important. And I suppose when you're thinking about it from, I suppose looking at it from the way that work can encourage, embrace, make a difference, listen, be curious. What do you think are the main things that organisations need to consider?
Ooh, that's a good question.
Yeah, that's a curveball question I just threw
Yeah.
in. You
Anyway, let
made
me
me
just
think.
fix that for all businesses. I think the
Yeah,
key
let's
thing
do
is,
that.
yeah, let's do it. Let's create a list right now. Let's solve it. Here we
Yeah.
go. I think the first thing is to listen to what the needs of people are and not discount them. It's really
Mm,
easy to, if someone is being loud or are upset, they can just be, oh, that's just how they are. Well, why are they like that? Why is it that
mm,
they are in a position that they're coming across angry or upset? Is it because they're not getting the support that they need? Is it because there are things that are not that are actively working against them at the moment? I think it's really difficult to make everyone feel safe and secure if they don't feel listened to. So
yeah.
having opportunities and feedback chances where people are actually listened to, a lot of like you said, we did. I know
Yeah.
it's a bit of a
Yes.
buzz kind of term, but it genuinely does make a difference if you're one of those people that raised that as a concern and it was listened to. It breaks down
Mm,
this like monolith that is a business into more human based, like, oh, I'm actually being listened to. That
yeah.
can be really powerful, I think, in terms of trying to make change and making people feel safe
Mm.
in their roles.
Yeah, I think, and they're really simple things to do,
Mm,
aren't they? It's
yes.
not like, it's not rocket science. It's general. Listen, okay, I don't know, but I'm going to ask and be curious and have that level of creating a sense of understanding. So that I can. I always think, I can walk in your shoes. I would never be able to do that, but I can ask questions about it to find out more. And I think that's the difference, isn't it? Is that willingness to even want to know,
Yeah.
and put it forward in there. But I suppose when you going back to what you were saying around in your education in the school environment, because obviously we're creating, the future generation, right?
Yeah.
And we're going to be working with Gen Zs very soon, and Gen As are coming through, and all of that lovely stuff. So it's about getting ready. But as a former teacher, how did you approach inclusivity in your classroom at the time? Especially as you mentioned for queer or questioning students, because you said that age, everything is like so much information is coming their way.
Yeah.
Should I be this? Should I be that? I don't know. What does that mean? How did you approach that?
Yeah, I think that's a great one. And it was a really difficult thing to do within a school because you are bringing almost part of yourself and putting it into a classroom and showing weekly, well, on a day could be 300 odd children, and being
Yeah.
careful about how much you share and what your intention as a science teacher, which I was, is what am I actually teaching.
Okay.
But I think
Yeah.
the first visible thing that I did was just have a pride flag up, just show that I am an ally, I am supportive, and it gives an opportunity to ask questions as well. That I think we had little badges on lanyards and things like that, which just showed that we were allies. It was just a visual representation that I am here to have that conversation and support you if you have questions, because people
Mm-hmm.
then felt more comfortable to stay at the end of the class. They obviously wouldn't do it in front of everyone, but they would stay at
Of
the end and
course.
go,
Yeah.
so why do you paint your nails, or
Yeah.
what does it mean to be bisexual? And they're incredibly nervous, but they know that they're in a safe space to ask those questions. And I
Yeah.
think allowing that opportunity to ask those questions and being
Mm-hmm.
supportive of that made a big difference.
Yeah.
And as I say, I think that the language that I used in the classroom as well, that I wouldn't just assume pronouns of young people because I didn't know,
Yeah.
and it didn't matter that I used they, them with them because they didn't have an issue with that. Some of them were sometimes
Yes.
like, I'm not a they. Well, what are your
Yeah.
pronouns then? Oh, she, her. Brilliant. I'll use those from now on. Thank you for telling
Okay.
me.
Yeah.
And just
Yeah. Yeah.
normalizing that kind of conversation, and it leaves them so jarred by you being so like open and having that conversation.
Okay.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
brilliant. Yeah,
Okay. Thanks. Yeah. Now I know.
exactly. Yeah, exactly. And just starting that ball rolling with them as well. I think that
Yeah.
created a space where people could have those conversations. And I will openly
Mm.
admit I was teaching. What was I teaching? I can't, something around electricity with a year
Oh.
10 class, and the
Okay.
topic swayed onto gender identity, and there
Right.
was a lot of knowledge gaps in the room. And I thought, you know what?
Ah.
I've got 40 minutes. I'm going to come back and do this lesson with them again at some point. This is a great opportunity for some children that are genuinely interested to ask questions and for us to have an open
Mm.
forum and have that conversation. And I think
Yeah.
allowing for that space to happen, even though it wasn't
Mm.
necessarily the right thing to do in terms of the national curriculum, like, no, we're preparing young people for the world ahead. This is an opportunity where they are
Absolutely.
interested. So let's have
Yeah.
this conversation. So that I think
Yeah.
is another way that you can be supportive in a
Yeah.
space, if with young people anyway.
Yeah, definitely. I think there's also an argument you could do that in the world of work as well, though, isn't
Yeah,
there?
100%. Yeah, that is true. That is true.
Yeah.
Um, I
And I
think
know
those
some
kind of
organisations do that, don't they? They have the groups that they've set up, and it's
yes,
got more and more. But I suppose it's how do organisations embrace that, like you said? Because I believe, am I right in understanding you set up a support group at the school as well?
yes, that's right. I set up a Rainbow
Tell us about
Alliance,
that.
we called it. So
Okay.
I think support groups are a really powerful thing that any school or business can do because it creates a safe space for people to go to have those conversations where they may not be able to have them in their normal life. And particularly for
Sure.
young people, in the case I was in, a lot of their parents wouldn't be able to have those conversations, or in some cases wouldn't be supportive of those conversations.
Mm,
So it gave people in a very isolated community or a very like marginalized space to have allies around them, either because they shared their identity or sexuality, or they just
hmm
had a connection with them. And we ran Rainbow Alliance for a little while. It kind of started at humble beginnings, and then I took over, and we started to run more events. We had held our own Pride
Sure.
events with silent auctions
Cool.
and raised
Yeah.
money for
Yeah.
charity.
Yeah.
And we also started to push back against certain things the school were doing and trying to get gender neutral changing rooms or gender
Mm,
neutral toilets and things like that. And it was a really powerful space for a like-minded people to go, this is something that we are feeling. What can we do about it?
mm,
Okay, let's collect these
yeah.
ideas and then approach the relevant people. And it just means
Yeah.
people feel listened to, and there actually feels like there's progress being made. And I think
Yeah.
that's a really powerful thing, that if you are sitting in something you're uncomfortable with, whether it's your sexuality, your identity, or something else, if you can
Mm,
see active progress to changing it and improving it, that validates that you want to do more of it and encourages
yeah.
others to see that and go, yes, let's keep this ball rolling. So I think support
Yeah.
groups are a really powerful thing that any school or
Mm.
business can have to allow that open
They
space.
can.
Mm.
Yeah, and I think what you said, what comes through is listening, just being heard, just being listened to, being given that
Yeah.
safe space to explore, not asking, well, you tell me what it's all about, actually doing your own research as well, and then
Yes.
asking questions off the back of it, which is, a lot of what, Laura and I are doing for this month
Yeah.
is going, well, I know that much, but I don't know that much. So what can I do to find out even more? And I think that is the bit that you go, oh my gosh, I now get that. Like I've
Yeah.
just learned nibblings. I love that. I
Yes.
never
Yeah.
knew that. Everything around it is so, it's so, being that inquisitive mind, I think, is really important. And we can all do that, right? It doesn't just stop at some point in life. It continues to evolve, doesn't it, if you want it to? But I suppose thinking about where you're at now in the work and the work that you're doing, and that intersection of identity and change at work, how does your queer identity influence the way that you lead and or facilitate transformation in the workplace?
That's I remember this question that Carl
Yeah,
asked me
you
a little
did.
while
Yeah.
ago, and I was like, oh, it did stump me for a little bit, and it's still a very
Okay.
like difficult question to answer, I feel. But on reflection, I think being queer and being aware of other communities and
Hmm.
other people's uniqueness and their different things that make them tick. I know we've done some work around sort of insights, and
Yes.
I know that I bring a lot of blue and a lot of yellow, and
Yeah.
in knowing that in itself, that people work in different ways, and
Mm.
recognizing that I'm going to have to if I'm bringing in change, if I'm looking to alter something, I know there's going to be resistance, and that's
Yeah.
okay, because it means that if someone is resisting, it means they care and they
Yes.
want it to work for them, and they want it to be a positive experience if I'm looking to change something. So it's about
Mm.
bringing those people on board and having that open and honest conversation with them as well. And I think you can really get into change and driving forces behind it if you involve those kind
Mm.
of people that are resistant to
Yeah.
it. And you can
Yes.
see, well, if you feel that way, then this person feels this different way. How can we involve
Yeah.
everyone in this?
Yeah.
Because
Definitely.
transformation, unfortunately, it's not a straightforward process. And
No, it's not.
improvement and building and learning, those are things
Yeah.
that are hard fought, but we have to keep doing it. And although humans are
Yeah.
creatures of habit, and we like things being like, yes, this is my routine, this is what works for me,
Mm.
if we don't push outside of that comfort zone and look to make our lives easier and better, things don't change and naturally
Yeah.
decline over time.
Yeah.
But
That's
yeah,
very true. Yeah, and I think we always say if you want to make any transformational change, for yourself, your team, your organization, whatever, you have to let go of some of the stuff that's not helping you, and let come the new stuff with that open mind, and open heart, and open willingness is what we always say, which is really interesting because I suppose when you're looking at thinking about or looking at the parallels between identity exploration and organizational change, being comfortable in the in the discomfort and challenging conversations, how does that play out for individuals to be able to know what, how, when to do to get the best out of their relationships that they build?
yeah, I think a lot of it is around having those challenging conversations and being
Hmm.
able to, as you said, being comfortable in that discomfort, because you are going to be trying to put change in place. You are going to be upsetting the status quo. And for somebody that's been very comfortable in the position that they have been in. They may be not as
Hmm.
aware of the impact it's having on other people, and being able to
Sure.
go, now you've been in a very positive position right now because of your upbringing, because of the position you're in within your business, whatever it might be. But there's
Hmm.
all of these lovely people over here that also want opportunity for growth and change, and being able to have that conversation around tolerance and sometimes morality, I think is a really interesting one. And there's always this, it's one that I come back to, and I think it's a really interesting concept. It's to do with tolerance. And I don't know if you've ever heard
Yes.
of it. It's the paradox of tolerance.
Tell us
And
more.
oh, I'd love to, because I love this one. It's this philosophical concept that basically suggests that if a society extends tolerance to those who are intolerant, it
Yeah.
risks enabling eventual domination of that intolerant behavior. So so essentially, if you are tolerant of everyone, you are
Yeah.
also
Yeah.
being tolerant of intolerance. It means that over
Right.
time, you're just going to end up with a non-tolerant society.
I've never
I,
thought about it
I
that
know,
way.
it's really
Okay.
cool. Karl Popper, 1945. But yeah, it's one of those ones where it's like, oh, as a person, I want to be lovely to everyone, and I've worked through being a people pleaser because I recognize the downsides of it. But getting to that point where you go, actually, no, I don't need to be tolerant of you right now, because what you are doing is actively being intolerant, and
Got
being
you.
comfortable with challenging that and going, no, we want, this is our goal, is to be tolerant and to change and make things positive. And if you are
Mm.
actively stepping in that way, I can't be tolerant of you in this situation because you are actively
Mm.
counteracting what we are trying to achieve. So that's a
Yeah.
really interesting one, the paradox of tolerance. So there you go.
Oh my God, I love that. I'm going to find out more about that. But it's not until you have these conversations that you go, oh, yeah,
Mm.
that makes sense. But you
Yes,
never
yeah,
have normally an opportunity to even consider that, because in the intent is, as you said, to be
yeah,
tolerant. But the
yes.
flip of that is also, well, yeah, but you're driving a different time, a way of being or behavior in that. So I think that is interesting. So if we bring into where we are at today and thinking
Yes.
about, you know, what we're doing and pride and representation, what does pride mean to you today? And I know that meaning has shifted over the years. I've experienced it, and it's always evolving and changing and learning. So, but what does it mean to you today?
I think it's something that's evolved for me as well over time. And I think
Mm.
initially it was around feeling a part of a community and being positive and amplifying the voices of marginalized communities, and showing visual support being in those spaces. And over time, it's kind of gotten to a point where I'm like, hang on, let's look at where Pride came from. Pride was a protest. Pride originally
It
started,
was.
obviously, 1969. We're looking at Stonewall.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that unrest that kind of followed with that, it was because they were pushing back against the status quo. And I've
Mm.
started to see Pride a lot more as a protest and going, no, society needs to improve. It has a great opportunity here, and it's not happening. So I like to. I recently went to an event organised by the Trans Liberation Group in Bournemouth, and
Hmm.
it was a rally, a march that went through the town, and it was a brilliant opportunity to listen to speakers in that space being angry
Yeah.
and wanting change and being passionate about that, and being part of that and being like, yeah, it isn't good enough, we do need to do better, what can we do? And that
Yeah.
inspires you to contact your MP with your discomfort in the situation, and that you want to see that
Mm.
change. And I think Pride gives us a beautiful reminder that no, things aren't there yet. And yes, let's be
Yeah.
positive about the journey we have made, but we're still not there.
Yeah.
There's a lot more support for folks that are gay, and there's a lot less discrimination around that. But there's
Mm.
still, like, our transgender folks, they are
Yes.
still being left behind. And I think it's
Yeah.
like, no, that fight's still going. Don't give up. We still have
Yeah.
more to do. So Pride for
Mm.
me is that being part of a community that said, no, we're not done yet, let's keep pushing. And
Yeah.
that is like, that puts a fire in my belly, and I get really
Yeah, you
excited
can
about it.
feel
I'll
that.
put my
You can.
cape on again.
I was going to say, let's put that cape on.
Yes.
I think, and that's it, isn't it? Because I suppose it's links with the just the general importance of being accepted. And you
Yes.
know, you mentioned this earlier about being part of something and belonging to somebody, a community. And I suppose that the importance of acceptance is massive, isn't it? And when we
Yes.
think
Yeah.
about you know, who or has helped us along the way to feel proud of your identity early on? You know, who would that be if you have anybody, or what helped you to do that?
I think as I said, sort of at the start of our conversation,
Yeah,
I really owe a lot to my partner KP,
yeah, yeah,
being able to ask so many questions to them and being able to learn
yeah.
in that space and being able to just have that door opened and go, oh, there's more things out here. I should
Oh,
probably
there's more.
explore
Yeah,
this. Exactly.
yeah,
And that's just one person, and I owe an awful lot to them.
yeah.
But the community space that you can also be in can be really powerful as well. And I'm
Mhm.
going to shamelessly name drop here for the
Go on
roller
then.
derby league that I am a part of. And for anyone that doesn't know what roller
Okay.
derby is, oh my goodness, look it up. It's a contact roller skating sport.
Yeah.
It is brilliant. It's a team-based sport where you are roller skating on a track with two teams. There's a jammer on each of the teams, and the jammer passes the
Okay.
opposing team skaters to get points. It's a beautiful game. I love it. But it's also delightfully queer as well, in the sense that it's an
Okay.
incredibly supportive space. The team that I'm a part of, Dorset Roller Derby, and I'll share some links
Thank
and
you.
things so you can get in touch with them if you're interested, if you want to come and learn to
Yeah.
skate, or be involved in the community. It is a unapologetically supportive space where you have lots of different genders, lots of different sexualities that come
Mm.
together because they feel safe, and then we hit each other whilst we're wearing roller skates. And I
Love
think
that.
that it's being in that community and then having that team sport element to go with it.
Yes. Yeah.
It just reinforces this beautiful space that, oh look, we can all exist together in harmony
Yeah.
with our differences, still do work together to achieve an objective, and
Yeah.
that, coupled with my love of roller skating, it's beautiful, and I really enjoy
Yeah.
what we have grown the league into over the past few years.
Oh,
And
wow.
it's come a long way, and because of the change that we wanted to put in place and what we wanted to improve and what we wanted to stand for, and
Mm.
how we wanted to be inclusive, and seeing the impact that that's now had with the
Yeah.
people that we've brought on, and the positive space that we have, that I feel has been so
Mm.
validating for me to exist in and to
Yeah.
help grow. It's like I did that a little bit. That was
Yeah,
part of what
yeah.
I did.
Take that.
Yeah,
Own it. I love that.
yeah,
And again, as
exactly.
you said earlier, you know, out of these small moments where, and then it just like snowball gathering, doesn't it, all the
Yes,
way, and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and people are then become more intrigued and interested and want to
yes.
explore, and that it has to start somewhere, isn't it? So for you, what voices in the LGBTQIA plus space inspire you right now?
That's a really good one. I think it's relevant to what's going on at the moment. As I say, the
Yeah.
Trans Liberation March that I went to was
Yes.
really powerful to see some voices of people that I follow on Instagram or
Yeah.
am aware of from previous events, and listening to them speak was really good. From
Mhm.
my teacher perspective, there was a brilliant educator and speaker that I reached out to, and we had come into the school to work with us, and that was Benny Cara. Um,
Mhm.
Benny Cara was a deputy head teacher, I believe, at the school that they were working at, but now they wrote a book that they're the author of. It's a little guide for teachers, diversity in schools, and it just gives us a little bit of an outline as to how you can make a classroom more inclusive. How can a school be
Mhm.
more aware of microaggressions, and how can it counter
Yeah.
it to try to make a more inclusive space where you do not erase those marginalized communities and actually amplify
Mm.
those voices. So that was really powerful to hear, like, oh, there's a book about this. Great, I can learn a little
Yeah.
bit more. And then the actual person came in and you get to shake their hand. Like, it is
How cool.
meeting role models was kind of fantastic in that regard.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah.
those having someone like that was very powerful for me,
Mm.
to see that, oh, it can be done. We can do this in a school environment. We can do this. Um,
Yeah.
and
And which you obviously proved with setting up the Rainbow Alliance,
yeah, yeah,
and as you said, creating opportunities for the young people to have conversations and ask you questions and explore.
yes.
So yeah, obviously it did inspire you.
Yeah, and that allowed us to then connect with other schools as well, and show and have those conversations with different students in different
Yeah.
classes. And I think it would be great if businesses could do more of that as well. So if there is a support group, that the other support groups could reach out to them and be like, oh, our business is doing
Mm.
this. What are you doing? What success stories do you have to share that we could potentially
Yeah.
implement for us? And I think that opening those things out is really good. I think it's the
Mm.
challenge that comes with that is visibility is great, but without security and protection, it's dangerous. And so it's all well and good. You can stand in the middle of the street and shout and scream about your sexuality or your identity. People probably won't like that, and you put yourself in danger. So until that positive support and change in culture is in place, you kind of got to be careful with it. So it's a sad truth, unfortunately, but I like to think that the wheels are turning in the right direction, and we will start to see more of that positivity.
One step at a time. It would never have,
exactly.
I mean, otherwise we'd just stay stuck, and that's not,
Yes.
and we haven't, as a whole race, we have not stayed stuck, which is a good thing as humans, I suppose,
Exactly.
somewhere. But just to I mean, we could talk about this for ages, but just
Yeah,
to
no,
sort
I'm
of
enjoying
bring
this.
it
This is
up.
great.
I know, it's so cool. What would you tell your younger self stepping into their identity in school or in the workplace?
Ooh. I think be proud of who you are and learn about other people. And the reason I say that is because I learned very late in life about the differences and different people because of my very heteronormative upbringing. It allows me to, if I could say that to my younger self, and just be like, be proud of yourself, be your own role model if you can, and live in that truth in regards to you want to learn more, you want to be a better person, then educate yourself and be comfortable that you don't know things, and that's fine. And being aware that yes, you don't know everything now, and you're never going to know everything, but that's part of being human. It's about learning and making those steps along the way. So yeah, being your own role model, I think, is a hard thing to do. But if you can get to that point, if you can build your self-esteem and know that you're making the right decisions and being proud of yourself, that like little internal, it's something that it really works for me, and I know it's not great for everyone. It's that little internal voice. Mine's incredibly positive. So if things are difficult, it does spur me on. But I know for other folks, that internal voice is very much the opposite. It's fully negative. Like, you're not good enough. You're never going to be good enough. And I think having more positive self-talk and making yourself more and recognizing when you're having a bad day or you're having negative thoughts. Let's challenge those thoughts. Let's provide evidence to the contrary of how you are feeling, and let's explore why that. Yes, that is a thing you are thinking right now. Let's explore it, and let's create a plan to improve from that. So yeah, challenging unhelpful thoughts. That's been something I learned through counselling. Challenging unhelpful thoughts is very useful.
It's very useful. I know we do a lot of that as well. So my last question, well, maybe second to last question, is what would you like allies to better understand about being a demi-boy and queer in professional settings?
I think just being aware of differences within a professional space, that you are going to have people from lots of different backgrounds and lots of different identities and sexualities and families and backgrounds and cultures and religions. So much more around a human being. That advice I would give to anyone would just be, don't assume that you understand someone based just on how they look or a conversation you've had. If you want to get to know someone, then get to know someone. I think we're in a position where society and businesses are so focused on particular goals and objectives. It's almost defiant to go, actually, you want me to just make these very like basic level connections with other professionals so that I can learn from them and better myself and grow the business. Be a human being. If you kind of like that person or you want to know more about that person, but have a professional relationship with them, learn more about them, have a conversation, and don't be afraid to have deeper relationships with people within a work setting, because it allows you to trust that person more, and
it does.
And facilitate those conversations with them more. So yeah, be defiant and like people that you work with. You're not going to like everyone.
I like that. No, you won't, but you can help to go find out what is going on there. But
exactly.
Being curious about it. So if you were to give us, our listeners, one call to action, what would that call to action be?
I think the call to action for everyone listening is to never stop learning. And what I mean by that is keep educating yourself. If you are not that marginalized community, or even if you are, listen to the voices of others and be prepared to amplify them, because the more we make noise about this, the more we make language and conversations around gender neutral language, using the term
Yeah.
nibbling more often, whatever
Yeah.
it might be, make those things normal and make it
Yeah.
more expected. And so therefore those that are not as aware of it or haven't learned get that opportunity to learn, and allows for that social progress and improvement within society and
Yeah.
individually as well.
Yeah, brilliant. I mean, oh my God. And everything you've spoken about, going, yes,
Yeah.
it's, yeah. And as you said, it's just being a decent human,
Yes.
which
Yeah.
I always go on about. Just be decent, be kind, compassionate, and care enough to want to know or find out. Don't be narrow-minded or blinkered, and be
Yes.
unapologetically you, as you said
Yes.
as well.
Yeah.
But I just want to say a massive thank you, Ollie, for taking the time out to talk about this, because it is amazing what you've transitioned careers as well. You've explored different avenues. You're making it that ability to get people to think differently in the world of work as well. And I think that's just, incredible. And I love that. I love it to bits. But I want to say a massive thank you for your time. So how do people reach out to you if they want to know a bit more about what you're doing, or where they might be able to connect with you, if they've resonated with what you've said and went, oh, actually, I need to talk to somebody. Why would I not talk to Ollie? Where can they find you?
Course. I think the best way to get in touch with me, if you're not going to come and do roller skating, probably through my LinkedIn. And
Yeah.
I'm going to be like, oh, what is my LinkedIn? Because I sent it to Carl, but I didn't actually.
We didn't print it off
I
around
didn't
it. I
print it
think
on.
yes, we need to have a look at what
You've
it is.
got it.
But
I
we
think
can. I've got it. I have got
you've
it,
got
and
it. I
I'm
think
gonna.
it's 75, but that could be wrong.
I
Is that
think
Ollie
it might
Cooper
be.
75?
That sounds like it was right, even though you're giving your age away there as well.
Oh, does that give the age as well?
Well, if you put your date of birth on it, it will.
That's not my
Yes, it
date of birth.
does.
I wasn't born in
Oh wow!
75.
I want
Absolutely
to know
not.
what I was going to say. What does 75
Well,
mean for
now
you?
I'm confused. No, exactly. As I say, I'm now questioning what it was. So I sent it to Carl. Here we go.
We will make sure people have
No,
got it. Don't you
it is
worry.
literally just
Yeah.
www.linkedin.com/Ollie Cooper.
Oh,
There's no
there we
numbers
go.
at all. Ignore
No
that.
numbers at all. I mean, you must that. Well, I'd say put the lottery on tonight, but they don't have 75 on there, don't
No,
they?
no, I don't think so. That's true. That's true. But yeah, I'd be
Oh,
very
well,
happy
Ollie,
for people to
thank
reach
you.
out.
Brilliant. Well, make sure that gets into the show notes as well. But I want to say
Thank you.
massive thank you for taking time out and just giving us that, your advice, your wisdom, your guidance. It's been super helpful. And I've learned loads as we've been chatting as well.
Yeah.
So, yeah, thank you for your time.
Oh, thank you. I've had a wonderful opportunity to speak with you. I always enjoy chatting with you, Deb. So I'm very happy
Yeah,
to have
thank
given my
you.
time today.
Yeah. You look after yourself. We'll see you
And
soon.
you too. Yes, see you soon. Take care.
All right.
Bye.
What did you think?
I feel like I've read the new section of the highway code about new rules of the road and smart motorways, and I just sort of think, there's such an easy analogy to driving on the motorway, because when I first learned to drive, there was no mobile phones, there was no smart motorways,
that's true.
there was none of these dynamic speed
No
limits,
sat nav.
no sat nav, and you can't stop progress. And if you want to continue driving on the road, then part of that license is that you commit to understanding the new rules of the road. That's part of being a safe and compliant driver. And maybe there's the same parallel in the world of work. If you want to be there in the world of work these days, part of that is being able to understand and find out new ways of describing stuff. So I've learned loads of new words, and I know, Debs, you introduced me because you'd obviously spoken to Ollie, and then you shared with us as the team about this new word. So your massive takeaway was...
Yeah, just that awareness of how people want the pronouns. And what I took away was the word nibblings. And I went, what is that? And you'll hear him when he talks about it. And that's if rather than a niece, nephew, you have a nibbling. And I just think, oh my goodness. So that doesn't even pigeonhole young children, people, even at that age. So that ability to reframe and understand the nuances around language, I think is super important. And I know we talked a bit about, and I know with a few of our guests, we talk about the word queer coming from the queer community, because back in the day, back in my days in the 70s, queer was a bit of a derogatory word, whereas now the queer community is embracing that as a great word. And I think, yeah, that makes sense. Why would we not? So, so I learned about nibblings, which I loved, absolutely loved. So it was brilliant. What about you?
Well, I think it sort of gave me pause for thought about just how important language and words is. And I was thinking, I've been doing a bit of work in the States recently. Clang.
Go on, mic drop. And you're going back, aren't you, Law?
I know. Yeah. Supported. No, invited.
No.
And I've noticed that I'd never heard the word folks being used quite so much. And that is just, I think, well, certainly in the industry that I'm working with, that's the way of, if you want to gather a load of people together in the room, you say, oh, okay, folks, or those folks over there. And I'd never really heard that word, but I like it. I think it's an easy way. Yeah. And it doesn't take any energy for me to just use the word folks rather than guys, as you said.
Yeah.
What's the loss for me? But if actually that means everyone in that room feels included, why wouldn't I? So that's what I really took from actually. Nice. There are certain moments where certain words will stick out. And so why wouldn't you just gem up on some of the new ways of describing it? So, I loved it. So thanks, Deb.
Yeah, it was really cool. Yeah, he was so good, wasn't he? And I just loved his passion and enthusiasm as well for being, a forerunner in setting groups up or enabling safe spaces. And again, like Steph, it was about creating safe spaces for people and to be who they are and, safe, protected spaces, really, which I just thought was, which humans want. And I just thought that was the underlying message that came through. How do we create safe environments for people to be them? And I really loved that. So, and I think that linked into my call to action actually on this one, Law, which was listening to Olly, was around that learning moment again. So where you had, I'd love you to share with us through our Instagram page @Secrets from a Coach, is what has been, I get it now moment, and it makes sense to you. So if you have a moment in time where you learn because of a conversation you had with somebody, share that on our Instagram, because we'd love to hear your story about the, I get it moment.
Yeah, that little jolt, that little learning jolt. Yeah, that's a great one. And my call to action would be, who do you know in your life with whom has been saying things recently about, I don't get all this new stuff, it's all overwhelming, it's too complicated. Get them to listen to this. And our hope and ambition for this 5-part focus was an easy listening, low drama, just focusing on curiosity and education to equip and empower us to be able to do what we can in those moments to bring those pride values to everyday life. So who do you know who said recently, it's all above me, I don't understand, it's all too much? Get them to listen to this, and hopefully this is the opposite of sensationalism and just bringing a bit of a practical approach to it. So Deb, this has been our second one. We've got 2 more guests, and then we're going to do a bonus 5th episode where we're going to sort of tie it all together and give some sort of key takeaways. So we're looking forward to next week. Thanks again to Olly for a fantastic conversation. Yeah. And if you want to contact Olly, we'll have his details in the podcast overview description. So Deb, in the meantime, have a learning-filled, amazing week.
Yes, I will. And you too, Law. And get your passport ready and make sure it's up to date.
Look at that photo again. Oh, God.
Yeah, look at that photo. I love that. But have a good one, though, Law.
Oh, you too, Deb.
See you later. Love you. Bye.
We hope you've enjoyed this podcast. We'd love to hear from you. Email us at contact@secretsfromacoach.com or follow us on Insta or Facebook. If you're a Spotify listener, give us a rating, as it's easier for people to find us. And if you want to know more, visit our website, www.secretsfromacoach.com, and sign up for our newsletter, here to cheer you on and help you thrive in the ever-changing world of work.